Hello and welcome to Indus News, live from Islamabad. I am Muneeb Hamid with the news of this hour. Let's begin with the headlines first. Azerbaijan says it has liberated several villages in the Gubadli region from Armenian occupation. The Azeri Defense Ministry said the Armenian forces are targeting Aghdam, Terter and Aghjabadi cities. Authorities in the Karabakh region say nearly 1,000 Armenian troops have been killed since September 27th. Pakistan's Prime Minister Imran Khan says France is creating radicalization by encouraging display of blasphemous cartoons. Khan accused French President Emmanuel Macron of ignorance and creating more hate and Islamophobia. The Prime Minister said by attacking Islam, Macron has heard the sentiments of millions of Muslims across the world. Afghan security forces have killed a senior Al-QAEDA leader, Abu Mohsin al-Masri, during an operation in the HOUTHI province. Al-Masri was on the US FBI's most wanted terrorist list. Meanwhile, the toll from Saturday's blast outside an educational center in Kabul has risen to 30. The United States has recorded its highest daily COVID-19 cases for second day as over 94,000 people tested positive overnight. France has reported record 45,000 new coronavirus cases and 138 deaths in the past 24 hours. In Pakistan, 9 people lost their lives to the virus since yesterday, taking the toll to 6,736. While globally, the coronavirus has claimed over 1.1 million lives and infected 42.5 million people so far. And in mixed martial arts, champion Khabib Nurmagomedov has announced his retirement. This followed his win against American Justin Gaethje in the main UFC 25-4 event. Nurmagomedov defended his UFC lightweight title and remained undefeated in a record 29 fights. Nurmagomedov was the first Russian and Muslim to win the UFC lightweight championship. Well, these are the top stories, news in detail coming up after a short break. Stay tuned. Welcome back. Now let's have the news in detail. We start from Azerbaijan, which says it has liberated several villages in the Gubadli region from Armenian occupation. The Azeri Defense Ministry said the Armenian forces are targeting Aghdam, Terter and the Aghjabadi cities. Refuting Armenia's accusation of targeting civilian settlements, Baku said it is ready to implement a ceasefire. In an interview, Azeri President Ilham Aliyev said he is confident in the effectiveness of the peace negotiations. He added the peace talks also depend on the effective participation from Armenia. But Armenian President Armen Sarkisyan accused Baku of being aggressively destructive. Authorities in the Karabakh region say nearly 1,000 Armenian troops have been killed since 27th of September. Pakistan's Prime Minister Imran Khan says France is creating radicalization by encouraging display of blasphemous cartoons. The Prime Minister accused French President Emmanuel Macron of ignorance and creating more hate and Islamophobia. Khan said by attacking Islam, Macron has heard the sentiments of millions of Muslims across the world. Meanwhile, France has recalled its ambassador in Turkey for consultations. This came after Turkey's President Recep Tayyip Erdogan said Macron needs mental treatment over his attitude towards Muslims and Islam. Meanwhile, Afghan security forces have killed a senior Al-QAEDA leader, Abu Mohsin al-Masri, in a special operation in the Ghazni province. The National Directorate of Security says al-Masri was the supreme leader of the organization in the Indian subcontinent.
Al-Masri was on the United States Federal Bureau of Investigation's most wanted terrorist list. The FBI said he also went by the name Hussam Abdul Rauf and was an Egyptian national. In a statement, the U.S. National Counterterrorism Center called Al-Masri's killing a major setback to Al-Qaeda. Meanwhile, the toll from Saturday's blast outside an educational center in Kabul has risen to 30. Officials said that over 70 people were injured in the suicide attack. U.S. envoy Zalmay Khalilzad has called for a reduction in violence by all sides to secure a ceasefire. He also confirmed the deaths of 12 children in a government airstrike in the Takhar province.
Well, now in Afghanistan, Hizb-e-Islami leader Bulletin Hekmatyar says an interim government is the only solution to the country's long war. At a press conference, he said the ongoing peace talks in Doha are not intra-Afghan talks. Hekmatyar said the Taliban have not yet accepted the current government. About his recent trip to Pakistan, Hekmatyar said Islamabad has assured of its continuous role in the peace process. Moving on, the United Nations says a treaty to ban nuclear weapons has been ratified. United Nations chief spokesperson Stephanie Dujarric said 50 countries signed the treaty and it will come into force in 90 days. Dujarric said the treaty represents the UN's commitment to eliminate all nuclear weapons. He said the accord is a tribute to the survivors of nuclear explosions and tests. The 50th signature came on the 75th anniversary of the establishment of the United Nations. The treaty requires all ratifying countries to never develop, test or produce and possess nuclear weapons. Japan says it has decided not to sign the treaty in consideration of its security ties with the United States. Now moving to Yemen, where the Saudi-led military coalition says it has destroyed another explosive-laden drone launched by the Houthis. This comes just a few hours after the coalition said it intercepted a Houthi drone aimed at the kingdom. Now, the state media says the drone was destroyed before it hit Saudi Arabia's southern region. Earlier, Houthi said they targeted Saudi Arabia's Jizan and Abha airports and the Khamis Mushaith base with drones. Cross-border attacks by Yemeni rebels have escalated since May, when a truce prompted by the pandemic expired. In late June, missiles reached the Saudi capital Riyadh, and the coalition retaliated with airstrikes. Now, Iraqis took to the streets of Baghdad and Basra, marking a year since the anti-government unrest erupted across the country. Protesters were demanding an overhaul of a political system they see as profoundly corrupt. They waved the Iraqi flag and held up pictures of those killed during the protest. Over 560 people have been killed since a wave of popular unrest began on the 1st of October last year. Fighting between political parties clinging to power has fueled the crisis. Last year's protest caused the resignation of Prime Minister Adil Abdul Mahdi, who was replaced in May by Mustafa al-Khadimi. Also, thousands of protesters have gathered in Thailand's capital city of Bangkok. They took to the streets after Prime Minister Prayut Chan-o-cha ignored their deadline to resign. A protest leader said if the Prime Minister does not resign, more protests will be held in a peaceful manner. But in a tweet, the Prime Minister's office said he is not quitting. In a statement, Chan-o-cha said the crisis should be discussed in the Parliament's special session on Monday. Thailand has been rocked by protests for nearly a year, demanding Chan-o-cha's resignation and reforms to the monarchy. Meanwhile, Malaysia's King Al-Sultan Abdullah has rejected government's proposal to impose a state of emergency due to COVID-19 crisis. This comes after the king held consultations with political leaders over Prime Minister Muhyiddin Yassin's proposal. In a statement, Presidential Palace said the king believes the government has handled the pandemic well. It said Muhyiddin's government is capable of continuing to manage the crisis. The Prime Minister made the request following a resurgence in coronavirus cases. Earlier, the opposition leader Anwar Ibrahim also denounced the proposals presented by Muhyiddin. Now moving to Cameroon, where gunmen have killed 8 children and wounded dozens others in an attack on a school in the Anglophone southwest region. Kumba City Sub-Prefect Ali Anuga said the gunmen came on motorbikes around midday. He said many children were injured after jumping from the second story of the school in an attempt to escape. The official said the attack was conducted by the separatist insurgents who seek to form a breakaway state in the west. Last year, officials blamed separatists for kidnapping dozens of school children. Over in the United States, President Donald Trump has voted in person in the battleground state of Florida. This marks the first time an incumbent president has voted in person in the swing state. Details in this report.
U.S. President Donald Trump and his rival Joe Biden have hit swing states with just 10 days until election on November 3rd. Trump voted in West Palm Beach, followed by a trio of appearances in North Carolina, Ohio, and Wisconsin. He has joined more than 53 million Americans who cast early ballots ahead of election.
Any complications in there?
No, not much. It was a very secure vote. Much more secure than when you send in a ballot, I can tell you that. Everything was perfect, very strict, right by the rules. When you send in your ballot, could never be like that. Could never be secure like that. They've done a fantastic job over here. Great people inside.
Meanwhile, Joe Biden addressed supporters in Pennsylvania and warned of a dark winter ahead unless the country changed its ways. Biden lambasted Trump's attempts to contain COVID-19, which has claimed lives of 224,000 Americans so far.
We have 10 days left. It may come down to Pennsylvania. And I believe in you. I believe in my state. The choice has never been clearer and the stakes have never been higher. So it's time to stand up. Let's take back our democracy now. We can do this. There's nothing we cannot do. God bless you all.
While Biden leads Trump nationally, opinion polls show a closer race in crucial battleground states, which will decide the election.
Well, also people in Chile are set to vote in a referendum on drafting a new constitution. 15 million people are heading to the polls in the South American country's first referendum. If the plebiscite is approved, Chileans will vote in April to elect the commission that will write the new constitution. Recent polls show 70% of the country's population is in favor of a new constitution. Massive anti-government protests demanding equality last year prompted the vote. But concerns still remain that a new constitution may not be enough to calm protests and demands for greater equality in the country. Now, Belarus says it's ready to jointly fight external threats with Russia. The Russian state media said Belarus President Alexander Lukashenko spoke to U.S. Secretary of State Mike Pompeo in a call. Quoting Belarus state TV, they said Lukashenko told Pompeo that Russia does not interfere in their internal affairs. The U.S. State Department confirmed Pompeo's call. In a statement, it said Pompeo reaffirmed U.S. support for the democratic aspirations of the people of Belarus. They said Pompeo called for the immediate release of U.S. citizens vitally wrongfully detained by Belarus. Lukashenko is holding on to the power despite major protests in recent weeks calling for him to resign. More news coming up in this bulletin after a short break. Stay tuned. Welcome back. Now moving on with the news stories. The United States has recorded its highest daily COVID-19 cases for the second day as over 94,000 people tested positive overnight. India has registered 578 deaths and over 50,000 infections overnight, while the caseload is nearing 7.9 million. Globally, the coronavirus has claimed over 1.1 million lives and infected 42.5 million people so far. More details in this report.
The coronavirus pandemic continues to spread, making new daily records and infecting thousands. In Latin America, Chile has identified more than 500,000 cases of COVID-19 since the outbreak began in March. But restaurants and bars have opened with limited capacity as office workers return and some schools also reopen. The U.S. top infectious disease expert warns the resurgence in COVID-19 cases show the pandemic remains a global challenge.
Yesterday, we had 83,000 cases in the United States, which is the most we've ever had on a single day, even at the very worst part of the outbreak. And if you look at the map of the European Union and Italy and France and Spain and the UK, the same thing is happening there. They're having a resurgence of cases.
The streets and squares of Athens have become empty after a curfew was imposed to contain the virus. While in Rome, scuffles broke out between police and the people who were trying to break a recently implemented curfew. Italy's tally of confirmed COVID-19 cases have surpassed 500,000, with more than 200,000 of them still under treatment. France has reported record 45,000 new cases and 138 deaths in the past 24 hours. Doctors in France have warned that the hospitals are becoming overwhelmed.
Unfortunately, the number of COVID-19 patients is increasing, and it is expected that probably in mid-November we'll have 100% of all our beds saturated by COVID-19.
Australia's COVID-19 epicenter, Victoria State, has delayed the easing of lockdown restrictions due to an outbreak in Melbourne. Meanwhile, China has reported 15 new imported COVID-19 cases on the mainland.
Meanwhile, the coronavirus has claimed 9 more lives in Pakistan overnight, raising the death toll to 6,736. The Health Ministry says 832 people tested positive for the disease in the past 24 hours. The ministry said there are over 10,000 active COVID-19 cases in the country. It said out of over 327,000 countrywide cases, more than 310,000 have recovered so far. The ministry added over 143,000 cases have been detected in the Sindh province, while Punjab has reported over 102,000 cases, while in the capital city of Islamabad, nearly 19,000 have been infected so far. Now, the international human rights groups have urged Bangladeshi authorities to end harassing rights defenders. In a joint statement, the rights group said Bangladeshi intelligence officers have privately visited the activists' family members. They said the officers pressured the activists to stop publicly criticizing the government. The groups also slammed Bangladesh for failing to comply with its international obligations to uphold fundamental rights. They said the government is conducting widespread crackdown on journalists and activists. Also in the U.S. state of Colorado, the ongoing wildfire has claimed lives of an elderly couple. This comes as winds continue to fan the second largest blaze in the state's history. Authorities have issued evacuation orders to the residents of the Eastern Estes Park. The order comes as wind gusts are pushing the 191,000-acre fire towards east. Fire Incident Commander said firefighters are battling to contain the blaze aggressively. He expressed hope that a winter storm overnight will aid in containment. Livingston said the fire was probably caused by a human, but the investigation is not complete yet. Now moving to Vietnam, where the death toll from landslides, floods and other natural disasters triggered by rain has risen to 130. The Central Steering Committee for Natural Disaster Prevention and Control said another 18 people are missing. The deaths were mainly reported in the provinces of Quang Tri, Thua Thien Huy and Quang Nam. The committee mentioned that floods damaged 9,300 hectares of crops. It said the disasters disrupted traffic on several highways. Moving on, the Philippines government has evacuated nearly 1,800 people in the wake of a tropical storm, MOLAVE. National Weather Bureau has issued tropical cyclone wind alerts for several provinces in the Bicol and Calabarzon regions. The Bureau said the storm is expected to make landfall while crossing the southern Luzon area. It said MOLAVE is expected to continue intensifying over the South China Sea and possibly reach typhoon category by Tuesday evening. The Disaster Monitoring Agency has cancelled sea travel operations as 662 people were stranded at ports due to strong winds. It also said 532 families were preemptively evacuated to temporary shelters in the Bicol provinces. Meanwhile, the chairman of one of the world's biggest conglomerates, Samsung, has passed away in South Korea. Lee, aged 78, was hospitalized for 6 years after a heart attack. In a statement, the company called Chairman Lee a true visionary who transformed Samsung into the world-leading innovator. Lee inherited the chairmanship of the Samsung Group in 1987. Under Lee's leadership, Samsung rose to become the world's biggest technology firm by revenue. Hong Kong travellers boarded a flight to nowhere to enjoy a bird's eye view of the city before flying straight back home. This is the latest travel trend to give people a glimpse of normality during the COVID-19 pandemic. Details in this report.
The new coronavirus pandemic has slammed travel operations worldwide and hit the hospitality sector. With the aviation industry in deep crisis, several carriers have had to come up with creative ways to raise cash. In Hong Kong, an Airbus 320 with 100 passengers on board flew within 200 nautical miles in the southeast direction. Passengers got a top view from the window sightseeing over the South China Sea and some of Hong Kong's iconic city views.
Because you will never have to fly from Hong Kong to Hong Kong because of COVID-19. That's the only chance you can fly from Hong Kong to Hong Kong.
The flight themed Embrace Hong Kong had sold out in 30 minutes, with tickets costing between $110 and $153. Meanwhile, with few allowed to travel in and out of Singapore due to COVID-19 restrictions, hundreds have flocked to the airport to eat airplane food at a pop-up restaurant on board an A380 jet.
There's more than enough food and, of course, a beautiful beverage selection accompanying that through the experience today. So, looking forward to bringing some Singapore Airlines hospitality back, back to the sky. But we're on the ground, obviously. But the 380 dining experience will be a wonderful, wonderful journey for many, many people today.
The meals range from $40 per person in economy to $480 for a suites class meal. Most of Singapore airline planes have been grounded since the outbreak.
Mixed martial arts champion Khabib Nurmagomedov has announced his retirement. This followed his win against American Justin Gaethje in the main UFC 254 event. Nurmagomedov defended his UFC lightweight title and remained undefeated in a record 29 fights. In a post-fight interview, Nurmagomedov said he promised his mother this will be his last fight. He thanked all members of his team and his supporters. The 32-year-old Russian defeated Conor McGregor in Las Vegas, Nevada in a 2018 lightweight title fight. Nurmagomedov was the first Russian and Muslim to win the UFC lightweight championship. Now in football, Manchester United have drawn their home fixture against Chelsea in the English Premier League. Both teams had a fair share of chances but failed to score.
United stay on the 15th spot while Chelsea moved to 6th after 9 points from 6 fixtures. In another fixture, Crystal Palace beat Fulham 2-1 at Craven Cottage. Earlier, Manchester City played a 1-1 draw with West Ham. Mikel Antonio scored the opener for the Hammers before Phil Foden levelled for City. In another match, Liverpool defeated Sheffield United 2-1 after a closely fought contest. In the German Bundesliga, Bayern Munich has thrashed Eintracht Frankfurt 5-0 at the Allianz Arena. Polish forward Robert Lewandowski scored a hat-trick to take his tally to 10 goals in 5 games. Bayern moved into second place with 12 points from 5 games. Meanwhile, in the Spanish La Liga, Real Madrid have beaten arch-rivals Barcelona 3-1 at Camp Nou. This win, the title holders have moved to the top of the table.
And that is all for now. For the latest updates, you can always follow us on social media at Indus.News. Take care.